are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community. Our theme music is a clip by Jose Ray, made specifically for this show. Guest Ryan McCurdy is a consultant, producer, writer, and actor. His work has taken him across the concert and theatrical landscapes with appearances at New York City's Town Hall, Broadway's Minskoff and New Amsterdam theaters, Carnegie Hall, and the legendary Bitter End. Storyteller, songwriter, and performer Ryan McCurdy will bring his one-man musical, Whiterock Cliff, to Savannah for a special one-night-only performance at 7 p.m. this Friday, August 28th, at Asbury Memorial Church. The evening will serve as a fundraiser benefiting Asbury Memorial Church and the Savannah Performance Alliance. You guys are good at this. I am bad at this. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, I would love to. I'm Ryan McCurdy, general raconteur and lover of the South, and especially Savannah, and a big supporter of its art scene and all of its multifaceted glory. That's me.
Katie, you can talk?
No, this is all him.
Well, my wonderful partner Katie Schmitz is here with me, and she's serving as the company manager for the tour and making sure that she's making sure I don't Tom Holland anything about the show and spill any of the secrets that which is important because I do like to spill secrets. So there you go.
Oh, all right. How did you end up in Savannah?
2001. I was looking for colleges, and I convinced myself it was the answer was to go north because I'd grown up in Atlanta and Charlotte, and the only thing I wanted to do was be in a different part of the country. And then I got to New York and went to my campus tours at NYU and Columbia, and you know how sometimes a place is not right for you yet. The place was not right for me. Everything I thought I was going to love terrified me, and what NYU was selling me was like, you get to walk across a park from class to class, and in Columbia they were like, you can eat at 16 ramen places within a block. So all these things, which ironically now I love, were terrifying to me. And the irony that I now work at Tisch and have for several years is not lost on me, that it took me 20 years to get back to NYU. But in the midst of thinking that it was going to be the Northeast, I got this invitation to come tour this relatively new theater program at SCAD. And I had never heard of SCAD before they sent a postcard to my family. And I came down and I fell in love with the city, which I had never visited before that point. And they showed me a good time with the campus tour, and they made the money right for my folks. And it was like, let's do it. So then I was here 2002 to 2006, did my first kind of 8 years of working mostly in the city, and then have been in New York since 2010, but with many repeat visits down here to do projects.
Very good. You want to give us the bio? What's your background? What's your full? Normally I list this off, but it's less fun when I do it.
I went to SCAD. Well, I thought I was going to be a computer scientist, and so I was looking at all these schools for computer science, and then I got cast in a play, and they wrote me a check at the end of it, and people were clapping after every performance. And I thought, this is so much more entertaining than talking to computers for the rest of my life. So I said, okay, this is what I do, but I'm scared to do this, so I'll do film. So SCAD actually let me in for film, which was amazing of them because I had shown them no proof that I could make a film. And the film major lasted, I think, 2 quarters. And then this wonderful professor, Annette Haywood Carter, who's a phenomenal director, great professor, and I'm sure she's fine with me saying this, she took me aside in one of our classes and said, I don't think you're ever going to be a very good filmmaker, but I do think you probably will be a pretty good actor. So on that advice, I switched majors, and at that point, SCAD had what was called it was performing arts, and so you got to go into the weeds with lighting design and marketing, but you also, so all of us in my year got this really robust liberal, not only liberal arts, but thorough look at the craft, and then worked when I was working here. I was here at that moment where Club One was just about to open Bay Street Theater, And so I was doing a company called Cardinal Rep on Louisville. And when I moved to New York, I handed the space and everything that came with it to Jen Hughes Susie Rand. And she created Muse Arts Warehouse in that space, which then ran, I think, another 8 years. And then, I've been coming down as much as schedule has allowed ever since. And in New York, I've really been very blessed to kind of run the gamut. I've worked on Broadway for several years, have sung everything from, dive bars to Carnegie Hall sometimes in the same week. And I think ultimately, and have performed in probably at this point 35 of the 50 states. And so while I feel like my career has reflected the way I was educated, which is that you see something that needs to be done in a performing arts space and you go and you do it. And that's why I've ended up being an artistic director and a sound designer and a music director. Like, what needs to get done gets done. But my heart is in theater making and acting.
Very good. All right, so you have a one-night show coming up.
I do. And I kind of wanted to make it a tradition because last year there's this wonderful organization called Savannah Performance Alliance, which I was involved with right from the inception, which Chris Bass had started really as an opportunity to introduce his daughter, Molly, to the community by having a reason for her coming with him to interview people and to be at theaters that were not just her school or the environment she was already comfortable with. And it was one of those things that he just started it to serve that purpose. And then people kept coming up to him and saying, well, you call it Savannah Performance Alliance, it should be this, and other people, this should be this, it should be this. So about the time I was getting involved, Rick Garman from Savannah Cabaret was also getting involved. And the three of us sat down at Cohen's something retreat, Cohen's retreat. I was like, there's a Collins Quarter and a Cohen's retreat. And we sat down for several hours. And by the time we left, we had hashed out this way that SPA could help the community in a number of ways. And I've been on their board of advisors ever since. And last year had the idea, why don't we do an annual fundraiser or something that I can spearhead that raises money for their programs, their mission, which are the 24-hour plays, which happen every year. And then next year, the reoccurrence of the Savannah Performing Arts Festival, which we did last year for the first time, bringing that back and also bringing back an annual gala, which celebrates all of the performing arts and artists of the Lowcountry. And so last year I did a play with a very long title, which shortens to An Apology. And it's basically a completely nihilistic John Faustus begging this random assortment of people he calls his audience, begging them to understand why he left no good record of his time on Earth. And Mephistopheles, played by the extraordinary Justin P. Kent, sits in an armchair behind him and waits silently for the entire hour and then takes him to hell. And we had a great time and raised a lot of money for SPA. And this year wanted to do it again and also include Asbury Memorial, which has been a place that has been essential to my not only spiritual growth, but my theatrical and artistic growth. And we realized that I was like, well, what do I do? We did Apology last year, and I don't know if I could memorize another 60, 90-minute show. And Katie and I were kind of sitting around looking at things, and I was like, well, I did write a show that can be done solo called Whiterock Cliff, and half of it is set in Savannah. Why has this not happened before? And that's the very long story of how we got where we are. And we're doing it next Friday night with an incredible guest named JJ Collins, who's a local pastor and spectacular musician. And she's going to, for the first time ever, come up on stage and sing some of the duets with me, which will be really fun.
Oof, very good. All right, so did you approach the church and say, like, can we do this here?
I think since about 2008, bless them, whatever insanity I bring them, they say yes and, which I really appreciate. We have done so many wonderfully fun things together. And so I think, I called Billy Hester, the pastor, and Randy Kennedy, who's the manager there, and said, I would love to do this musical and raise money for you in SPA. And it was basically just finding the date at that point. They are so community oriented, and it's such a two-way communication there. The way that they communicate with artists and offer opportunities for artists is so open and reciprocative. So yeah, we just had to figure out the date, and my schedule has been a little chaotic this year. So when this date became available, it was like, lock it. So yeah. And it was one of those things we could run. There's a part of me that would love to run this for weeks and weeks and weeks, but there's also, fine arts and performing arts, there's something about a limited time offer. Galleries and performance spaces both benefit from if you don't come see it, you don't ever get to see it. Because in Savannah especially, and I say especially because it's especially Savannah, that I have gotten so many calls the day after a show has closed that had run for 3 weeks, and well, I'm coming to see it next weekend. Well, no, you're not. Or I'm coming to your gallery on Friday. No, you're not. And so offering one night kind of ties that all together.
The FOMO is real, yeah.
It really is. And people have been coming, they came up at church today and they're like, it's only one night, so I gotta get there. I'm like, well, I mean, don't stress yourself, but yes, please, that'd be great.
What can you tell us about the show itself without giving too much away?
Yes, Katie is here to keep me from doing that. No, I am totally happy to share the story. Actually, JJ at church today came up with a great log line for it. She said She said, having only read my press release about it, had said it's a post-apocalyptic story of hope. And the short answer is I did actually go on the Appalachian Trail in 2010, shortly before I moved to New York. And my partner at the time and I thought we were going to do all 3,000 miles. And we made it several hundred miles. And then I, being a fool, fell a long distance off a waterfall and busted myself up really badly and effectively ended the trip. And then the relationship ended right after. I moved to New York, my entire world rebuilt. And then I realized about 10 years later that every song I had been writing in that interim, to some degree, was about the handful of weeks of that trip. I was stuck, trying to examine this very short period of my life from every angle. And my friend Ellie Pyle said, I came to her and I said, I feel like I'm stuck. And she said, well, what if you put all the songs into a narrative? And in late 2019, we put it into a narrative about, it was like, well, what would cause most of America to return to the Appalachian Trail? What would be an inciting incident? And we came up with the idea that something has happened that has caused people to not be able to be together and has destroyed society. And we did this, yeah, I know. And we did this in October 2019.
It's a little on the nose.
Yeah, it was. So we did it. We picked up a producer. We were going to do it in May of 2020. And then we prognosticated. There you go.
So we can blame COVID on you. You just, prophesied the whole. Yeah.
I am willing to take on that level of responsibility for the show. As long as you come raise money for Asbury Resort, yes, I will. It was very odd to have written a 7-person musical about a COVID-like situation that we could not produce because of the COVID-like situation. And my producer, 2 years into COVID, my producer said, I don't think we're ever gonna, you remember this. There was a point where I was like, we're never, ever gonna be in galleries again. We're never gonna be in theaters again. Every time something would happen that would allow us to go into a space, then something would happen to take us back out. And my producer said, the only thing that the union will let you do right now is go into a studio by yourself and perform virtually with cameras. And she said, I'm game if you are. So we developed a version that ran, at that point, what was considered off-Broadway was virtual broadcasts from off-Broadway. So we rented an off-Broadway studio. And I did the show for 8 weeks, to no one, facing cameras, that there was a red light that told me whether they were on. And then the trippiest thing was that my voice went into the camera, which went to a stage manager on the Upper West Side at home with her dog and her husband. And then it bounced to our tech team in Queens. And then it went to our director in Los Angeles, who was watching every show. Then it went to the producer in Virginia. And then it went to the audience. And it all happened in a split second. And so it was this bizarre experience of knowing there was this huge team creating the show and feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. And so then the journey since has been, what does that show look like being back with people? And that's the version that's coming to Savannah that we've worked on for several years.
Was it just a phone call to JJ like, are you in?
Yeah. Well, JJ and I have been simultaneously working on a duets show, which we're hoping to do next year. And this year just wasn't going to work out. And so when this came up, I was like, hey, JJ. And she said, yeah, that was good. I can't wait for y'all to hear her voice. And we've never done this version of the show with a second voice singing. And I think it's going to just be such a gift. And she's a gift, so.
Does she have any speaking roles or just singing?
Well, one of the things that happens in the show, which is that after I am ostensibly playing the character that is kind of based on my personal experiences on the trail. But as soon as I do my first scene as that character, Martha Good has developed this incredible sound design where the rest of the show is me as all the other characters speaking to a pre-recorded version of myself. So it gets a little trippy, yeah. There is a moment where a brave audience member with their consent, comes up on stage and acts out a scene with me that they have never seen before, which goes along with sort of the hiking the Appalachian Trail is an act of bravery. And my goal was like, what does that look like? How can we create that act of bravery in a theater space? And then JJ singing, because the show is a love story of many types, and there are these two voices, male identifying and female identifying, who are singing to each other the whole show, but without giving too much away, they are never in the same space, because one of them is going south to north and one of them is coming north to south, and they cannot speak to one another, but they are singing the memories of their own experience, and somehow it's the same song.
Lovely.
Thanks. I've never quite succinctly explained that, so thanks for getting that out of me. I appreciate that.
We'll like put it in a program and have it like release it to the dictation version. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Ship it to you.
Yes. Thank you. I'm interested. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Because I looked back at the log of the show. What has made you so passionate about supporting other artists? Because it's something that's important to me, and for me, it's this desire. For me, it's like the arts are they feel bigger than my body, and I feel like to support other artists is the only way that I can get it out. Like where does it come from for you? Because not all artists, in fact, very few artists support other artists. So where did it come from for you to not only support but to put on a pedestal? So
the show used to belong to Tamara Garvey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's David and Rob back in the day, but she'd had it for years and years, so she approached me to take it over. And having run art galleries in the past, now I am a stay-at-home mom, and we own a small business. So I think part of me might explode if I were not around any form of arts or artistic people. And being in a space where I have only 90% of my conversations, I guess, with a 2-year-old, it's nice to talk to adult humans and then learn things, because, I don't, even with 2 art degrees, that's very specific to painting, right? But it's so interesting to learn about everything. Mm-hmm. So I've had just a bunch of people on that have talked about DJing, or sound production, or standard painting or murals, or it's great. It's super fun and interesting, and helps me learn a little bit and keep my toes in the water so that I just feel like a more normal me.
Which is good, because I think the only way to fail at the arts is to carve them up and create little fiefdoms, so it's and I also think that an artist that is working in one mode and believes that to be the only mode that has meaning, that's the most, that's such a sad thought. And I know a lot of artists that do that, and it's such a sad thought, because to me, art is expression. Art is the only way we have to tell the rest of the world what it is that we think and are feeling. Yeah. It
would be so boring without it. And there's so much crossover. To put on a theater production, you have all of the sound elements, you have the technical aspects, you've got songs, you've got, are there sets? Do you have sets in this show that's coming up next week?
The full version has beautiful sets. This one is 2 mic stands, a guitar stand, a music stand, and a wing and a prayer. So yeah.
All right.
Which was partially, so this actually, the Savannah evening next week is kicking off a much larger, insane idea that we had called the Through Hike Tour, which is that I'm at the point in my life where it was already crazy when I was, how old was I when we did that? I was 26 when I hiked, when we went for the through hike. It was already insane to take 6 months off at that point because we've got to have money to live. It's just the way of America. And so it is infinitely more insane at this point in my life, 16 years later, to think I could take 6 months off. But I sure can do 14 performances of a show with giving myself a year to do them. And it kind of came across, it happened so spontaneously that I had already been asking Asbury about doing a Savannah night to start it, or actually was not even thinking about doing a tour. It was like, but just to do this one night. And then a friend, Katie Blake, dear producing friend in Maine, who also has a house in Savannah, she called and said, around August of next year, could you do something to raise money for one of our arts organizations in Maine, which is of course famously where the trail ends if you're going south to north. And I realized they're exactly a year apart, which is the length of a through hike. So I called my team and I said, can we do this? And they said, yeah. Have we figured everything about it out? No. Have we figured most of it out? No, but we'll figure it out.
All right. Why 14?
Oh, sorry.
That's through the actual hike? Okay.
Oh, there are 14 states that the trail passes through. And in many cases, the trail actually runs where it is possible along the ridgeline. It actually runs the state line for several hundred miles. So there's moments where for like 2 or 3 days in a row where you have a left foot in one state and a right foot in the other state because you are on the line. And there are some states, like famously, like West Virginia has the community that is considered to be the psychological midpoint of the trail. But in West Virginia, there's only like, I think 32 miles. And in Virginia, there's 370 or something. So some of the states have little brushes with the trail. Some, it goes all the way vertically through the state. No 2 states examine the trail or relate to the trail the same way. They all have different, like some of them have volunteer cleanup brigades, some have state organizations that come and do the clearing, and so it was interesting for us to think about, well then how will 14 very different states respond to a show that at its core is about the experience of walking the trail? And what is it about now that the show has this, we've returned it to its post-apocalyptic roots, the idea that people are using this trail, which was built over 100 years ago, to get back to their loved ones that otherwise they will never see again. It's the idea it suddenly is becoming the fastest route to get to your family. What does that look like? And if they're in a different state, what does that state look like to them?
Can you reveal what other cities you're hitting on this tour, or like dates?
Well,
still in the works.
Still in the works. I will say, between all the members of our team, one of the reasons we decided it was viable to do this was that we have a creative partner or have lived in and done art in all 14 states. So someone on the team has someone. So I will say some of the cities that we're coming to are Charlotte and Wheeling, and looking at booking hopefully a Norfolk date. And that's, I think, the interesting thing is some of the states will be literally, the spaces will be blocks from the trail. And in some of the states, we may be on the other side of the state. But the Appalachian Trail, I mean, I don't know what your personal experience with it is, but it feels like it's something that lives in the American public consciousness, even if you've never walked 50 feet on it. It's just something I feel like everybody has heard of. I was certainly from the time I was 9, they're like, there's this trail you could walk to go to Maine. And of course at 9, I'm like, why would I do that? I get driven everywhere. Why would I ever actively choose to punish my body that way? So
Do you know anybody that's ever finished it? Because I know people that have quit. I did not expect the story to be so dramatic with like you getting actually hurt. Did you go to a hospital?
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Oh well, and there was only one hospital. Well, first of all, we were 3.5 miles in from the closest support service road, which was only an emergency road. So one of my college mentors from SCAD was working in the area, and he was the only person I could think of to call when I fell. And there was one bar, and he showed up half an hour later, and so I hobbled out 3.5 miles, got taken. He took me, Dennis Elkins, bless his heart, you met him earlier this year. Katie and Dennis finally got to meet because I've been telling this like larger than life story, which he is. So we went to the hospital, and they didn't know that I'm a pianist, and like that's how I make my living. And so the first thing he said, he's looking at my hand, and the doctor goes, "Well, I hope you don't play any instruments." And I was like, "Huh?" And I think that was the first moment, like, that, well, I've done effed up. There's like that moment where I'm like, I have really messed up. And I was in the hospital for a bit, and then it took me months to get back on my feet. So yeah, but I know a ton of people that have successfully done it at all ages. I know folks that have successfully done it in their teens, and I know a guy that's 75 and did it at 72. It's available to lots of people at lots of points in their life, but it is never any easier just because you think you're young, which is what I learned. Just because you think you're young and invincible doesn't make you that way. And there's a story we tell on the show, which is a true story, and told through the lens of this fictional world we've built, about a couple in their 20s who went to the top of a mountain that's on the trail, and she did not know he was going to propose. And so she was looking out at the landscape, because it's a beautiful part. It was one of the parts of the trail I've done. And she was looking at the landscape, and she said, "God, baby, look how beautiful it is," and turned around and he had the ring out, and she was struck by lightning. And it's just like the trail has these very human stories throughout. And so we honor her memory by telling her story, because it had happened right before we walked that mountain on our hike in 2010. And so it was all of the buzz when we stopped in town. So like, did you hear someone just got killed, struck by lightning? She was getting proposed to. And yeah, so a lot of the scariest true things that happened to us on the trail, for instance, walking through a Civil War reenactment, because the trail passes through part of Hot Springs where there's a Civil War reenactment, and literally watching the South and North rush at us. And then I won't say which side was getting too much into character, but being told we needed to get off their land. That's ended up in the show because it was so surreal and post-apocalyptic that we didn't have to change a word of the conversation to put it inside of our fictional construct.
Okay, but the weapons were fake, right?
Well, that's the one. The big ones were, the ones on the hip weren't. Yeah. There was we met a lot of folks, and again, none of the show in no way makes any judgments. There's no politics on the show. There's no us versus them in the show. It makes no comment on the livelihood of how America behaves. But we are just telling the truth about interactions that I've had in 12 of the 14 states over my life of hiking. And it is incredible how different states react, not only to hikers, but to the concept of outsiders. And I think that's part of the show too, is this idea of what is it like to be an outsider in this part of the trail versus this part. And is the North as welcoming as they think they would like to be considered, and is the South as xenophobic as people like to label it? And I think that the show addresses that in both cases. Those are false generalizations.
What was your favorite state to walk through?
Well, the actual Whiterock Cliff is in North Carolina. Well, there are two, and that comes up in the show. But the one that I experienced the most was North Carolina, and it is probably the most beautiful hiking that I've experienced on the trail. It's just green and lush, and you're in the trees, and you turn a corner, and suddenly you can see for 6 miles, and it's beautiful. And I've done a lot of hiking like in the Rockies and in the Pacific Northwest, and like so I know mountains, and I know there's a lot of like our mountains are better than your mountains, and I honestly think the Appalachian Mountains are just so beautiful, and they don't deserve any of the hate they get.
Was there a spot on the trail that was like your least favorite? Does like anywhere get hate in the production?
Not in the show, but I will say that there are some scrambles in Maryland that I've done section hiking since 2010. There are some scrambles where you intellectually understand that they couldn't have put the trail in any better of a place, like because it's just the whole thing, the whole landscape is rock scrambles, which if you're not a hiker, that just means you're literally like clawing for the next foothold, and it's or handhold, and it's somewhat elevated, like you're going up most of the time. In fact, you're going up more than you're going down, and your brain's doing this weird thing where you're like, how am I still going up, but I don't feel like I'm at the top yet? And you can do that for 100 miles, and it just feels like you're just going up.
Don't go to Maryland, got it.
But I mean, there are people that love. I mean, I've seen videos of people just like that are like mountain goats who are just like and like Maryland's my favorite because I get my cardio, and I'm like, I love that for you. That's good on you. It's not me. I don't. Have you? Now, I didn't ask you this before we started recording. Have you ever stepped foot on the trail?
I have not. I had a gentleman friend in college that decided to take a semester off, and he and his buddy, and they were very big, strong young men at like 22, thought they were just gonna crush it. And they spent the equivalent of like their life savings at this point, getting all of the equipment. They made it like 3 weeks. They made it like not far at all.
Wow.
And I don't mean any shade. Sorry, Garrett, you might actually be listening. But it's just what the trail does to you, from what I'm told. It seems like everybody knows somebody that has been very humbled by this journey.
Yeah, Garrett, I feel you. I get it. Yeah. It is not a place you can go into with hubris. Or if you go in with, and not saying Garrett had hubris, but if you go to the trail with hubris, it will correct you. And one of the moments on the show that has always resonated, I think, with audiences is I talk about the fact, there's cave darkness, they where they talk about cave darkness is so dark because once you turn off the last lamp, if you're far enough underground, you start the idea that you think you see your hand because your brain knows what it looks like to see your hand, but you don't actually see it because there's nothing to bounce off of it. So you have this ghost image. And while I guess that's the darkest, nighttime setting in when you are 25 miles from a road and 25 miles to a road, and when the moment the headlamps go off to go to sleep, it is profound. And if you are, and I'm glad we're doing it at Asbury to some, for many reasons, but to some degree that section is the core of the show, because it says, if you have a relationship with God, it will challenge it. If you don't have a relationship with God, you will be challenged to create one. And so it's a great equalizer, because it is both, you are the smallest thing that has ever existed, and you realize that you simply existing is a miracle. And both those things are happening. And there's like this weird cognitive dissonance on the trail that I'm sure Garrett probably is going, yes, that. Because it's a cognitive dissonance of, this makes no sense, and this is what human beings were built to do, which is to move, to travel, and to encounter. And it's a weird dissonance to hold in your head, especially since you're dealing with people who are there for many different reasons. I mean, we met day walkers who were, wearing, what are the shoes with holes in them?
Crocs.
So like we met people wearing Crocs, and we met people who were like wearing all camo and like had spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's like, no two people are there for the same reason. But you're all there doing the same thing, but not for the same reason. That's really surreal. Because in America especially, like I feel like we fall into these camps of work, sleep, socialize. and the trail says, and you find yourself like falling into a camp of this is the kind of person I am like this, and that's why we have introverts and extroverts. And the trail just erases all of that and says, whatever you are doing here is great. We're going to make it as hard as possible to do.
You have really spent a lot of your life obsessing over this trail. I love it so much. How much time did you end up there, you said?
Well, so between the 2010 and the section hiking, I've probably spent four months on the trail. And
creating all of the songs.
Yeah.
Writing the entire play yourself. How much time do you think you put into this?
Oh, that's another 6 months of days of work. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we don't know each other very well. I hope that we continue to hang out, but like, this is how I am with everything. But this thing especially, and there was a moment where I have another musical that I co-wrote with a friend who has sadly passed since we finished it. But it's about Niagara Falls, and this one is ostensibly about Jones Falls. And I definitely had that Rick and Morty quote in my head when I realized what I had done, which is if I had a nickel for every time I've written a musical that has a waterfall at its center, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't very much, but it's weird that it happened twice. So I think it made me look at the fact that I think I am somewhat obsessed with the way that waterfalls in particular just don't stop. And like Niagara, for they've deduced hundreds of thousands of years, has just been doing its thing. Except for that once when it froze over, right?
They turned it off.
Oh, they turned it. That's right.
They turned it off.
Yeah. You're right. And they found like bikes and thousands of dollars of coins and sadly some people and stuff like that. Yeah. Which is wild to me because it's like how do you turn that off? Like the beaver, like how many beavers does it take to block up Niagara Falls? A lot.
What do you like more, writing, like the play part, or the music part, or the performance part? I mean, your hands are all over this that I don't even kind of know what to ask you.
I think when I was younger, in college, I was told I was a performer, and like not that anyone tried to put me in a box, but I think they were like, go do that thing. And so for many years, especially when I first got to New York and was having some success working as an actor, I was like, oh, I guess this is what I do. And then there was a hole in a theater's schedule and they're like, we want to fill it with something. And I said, oh, I can do this play or this play. And they're like, well, we can't, we don't have enough money to pay for licensing of an existing piece. But if you wanted to bring a show to us, and I don't tell this story in the show, but it was in Virginia Beach, it was in Norfolk. It was while I was home from school, and I booked the time, and they started advertising it, and then I got scared to write, and I still don't know how this happened, but we got to the day of the show, and I had written 0 words. I swear. And we had sold tickets. And so there's this moment where I'm like, well, if I call and they say, no one wanted to come to your weird show that you called Things I've Learned by Now, my parents are listening to this and laughing their butts off because they know this story. If no one is coming to this show, we'll just call it a wash and I won't have to do it. And they said, well, we've sold a lot of seats. People are coming to see this show. So I went on stage that night and improvised a 90-minute show. Oh no! Sorry, I just choked. Yeah, well. Are you kidding? It was probably the most petrified I'd ever been around. I thought you were gonna say like 15 minutes. Oh no! The show was the evening, and they had charged and this was like when I was in college. So like $15 went even further than that. So like it's like a $15 show, and you were gonna come see this random guy do his 90-minute show that they assumed I had written because I gave them a title and my name is the writer. When it was over, when my heart rate went back down, I realized 2 things. I love to create new works of theater, and I will never do that again. I will never do the the lack of preparation.
No improv for you.
Well, I love improv. I think it's more. I will never misrepresent something to an audience again, because like we love it. Like Front Porch, like improv is awesome, and I love improv when the audience knows I'm doing improv. But I realized, Ryan, you need to, if you want to create the way you think you want to create, you need to start being as diligent about writing for actors as you are about learning other people's lines as a performer. And so to answer your question in a very roundabout way, I think the creation of new works, whether or not they benefit me as a performer, as long as they benefit the larger community, that's the most interesting thing to me right now. And in a lot of ways, like everything, like if we're doing a sound design for something, or for or like in the case of you running galleries and I've artistic directed, like knowing that why things are happening is great. And then this one, it just made sense to do this one, the solo version, because half of the show is me explaining how it happened, and then half of it is me doing the show. And the full version, I've never actually had any intention of being in the full cast version if it ever comes back. And the irony is, I think we're going to get to the end of the Through Hike tour and sit down as a team and say, is there still a 7-person version of this? Or was this what the show was supposed to be? And that'll be a question we answer after we learn 14 different takes on it. Because it's been only done off Broadway in a room by myself, and then it was done in a very welcoming environment 2 years ago as a developmental in Paonia, Colorado, where we learned that people are interested in the South even when they're not in the South. They're interested in the Appalachian Trail even when they're not anywhere near it. But again, it's like we still, at that point, there was always the intention we'd come back to doing the 7-person version, and this, I think, is our real press to figure out if this is what it is. And I think that's what all art eventually is determining what the final version of a thing is supposed to be. And I think that's across all of the various things. And I think a lot of playwrights, like I had the luck to get to know Edward Albee pretty well before he passed away. And, he was someone that had been expressed to me growing up as a theater maker as like, this is the guy that like, he knows what he's doing. He's won all these Tonys. He's an icon. He's a legend. He has it all together. And then to find out that he was just as scared as the rest of us, and he was just as deprecating, and he was always trying to figure out what his show's final versions were. And that was fascinating to me, because I thought what I was lacking was the ability to close the door on a project. And I realized that it's the journey, kind of like the Appalachian Trail. It's the journey, and as long as you are thinking that's what you're trying to do, even if you never do it, you've still been going towards something good. Shout out to Edward Albee, R.I.P. Sad, yeah. I mean, the guy had a life. I mean, he was like 172 or something. So like, the guy lived. He was all right.
How do we buy tickets?
Oh, I should. Yeah, thanks for remembering to actually advertise my show for me.
You've been doing so well for so long. We need the details, friend.
Whiterock Cliff, one word, no dashes or dots. whiterockcliff.com takes you to the landing page of the Savannah show. There are purposefully many ticket categories. There is a Savannah Performance Alliance rate that is, so it's like 20, 15, 10 for Savannah Performance Alliance members. As far as I'm concerned, if you support the arts in Savannah, you are a member of Savannah Performance Alliance. And if you want a $10 ticket because that's your price threshold, that's great. I also have access to other codes for all financial. I would much rather people be able to come than have set some. My biggest thing is access to all. So anyone listening to this that wants, just message me on any of the socials or write Whiterock Cliff, and I can tell you how to get a better and even cheaper ticket. But the reason to spend $20, which is the top rate, is because the money goes back to Asbury and Savannah Performance Alliance. So if you can, let's make some money for these vital organizations.
Do they have something specific they're working towards, or is it just umbrellas because our nonprofits need money and we need to fund them anyway?
for Asbury, it's that Asbury is a very safe space for so many and needs ongoing support to continue that mission. For Savannah Performance Alliance, it will immediately go into the week after we do Whiterock Cliff is our annual 24-hour plays at Savannah Children's Theater. So the performance of it is on September 5th. So that will be going directly to financing that and to bringing back the Savannah Performing Arts Festival and annual gala in 2027. And I will say, as of this moment, there have been some very positive pre-sale amounts. So I am very excited that we are actually hopefully going to make some financial difference for these nonprofits.
Yeah, how many people fit in this room?
Well, Asbury proper, if you use the balcony, you can get up to I think 330.
Oh.
It's in a city where the whole call to arms is always venue. We need more venues. It is a jewel, and I know it can't always house everybody, and I know that sometimes people feel like it's inaccessible if they don't have a connection there. From my perspective, they are trying so hard to engage and not play favorites and not limit themselves to just the performing arts. I mean, it is actual. They are living the mission of what I have always thought a church should be, which is the doors are open. The doors are open and all are welcome, which is the way I also think Savannah Performance Alliance was founded on the exact same thing, which is fiefdoms should be erased. Leadership that is in it for the wrong reasons should be actively brought to light and restructured in a way that these organizations can all succeed. And let's all do that together, and no one will be turned away from Savannah Performance Alliance, which unfortunately I can't say for every organization. However, your recent show about New Oak Theater, having had quite an experience with them over the past couple of years, and we both loved, Katie and I loved their Glass Menagerie. I can confidently say that as a fairly new addition to the scene, they're living the message. So very happy about that. I have no qualms. I have lots to say about other things, but that's a whole different hour.
Do you have any final thoughts for us?
I am grateful that you have taken over the show, and I am excited to perform this show for what feels like a lot of chosen family, but I'm really excited to meet folks that I have never met, because even though I have 25 years of experience with this city, I feel like it is constantly reinventing itself. And I would love to meet those folks so that we can find out what their artistic loves and desires are and connect them to the right people, which is what SPA is always trying to do.
We'll see you at the show.
See you at the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much to Ryan for stopping by and chatting about his work. We're so excited to see the special one-night-only performance at 7 p.m. this Friday, August 28th. There is more information about Ryan's background and about the musical Whiterock Cliff in the show notes. There's links to buy tickets, and I can't wait to see you there.